We've all had that moment. You're interacting with an AI, you ask it a question, and the answer it gives you it feels strangely familiar, almost ancient, right? So, how can a system that's just trained to predict the next word in a sentence come up with something that has such deep human like structure? Are these LLMs just really, really sophisticated mimics, stochastic parrots? Or is there something more profound going on under the hood? I mean, some of their outputs tap into these patterns that just resonate with us, patterns you see across cultures and throughout history. They can spin up stories, metaphors, and even give advice that feels archetypal, like it's been pulled from some collective well of human wisdom. So, the central mystery we're really digging into today is, where does this apparent wisdom come from? How in the world does a statistical model tap into the very blueprints of human meaning? Well, in this explainer, we're diving into a paper with a truly mind-bending theory. It suggests that AI, simply by compressing these massive amounts of human text, is unintentionally creating a functional map of our collective psyche. Now, I know that's a huge claim, but it's one that's built on a fascinating interdisciplinary foundation. Okay, so let's start the investigation. We're on the hunt for the source of this unexpected depth, this kind of ghost of meaning that seems to be haunting the computational machine. And our first clue, well, it doesn't come from computer science at all. It comes from the world of psychology, specifically from the work of the legendary Carl Jung. Now, when you hear the word archetype, you might think of something kind of mystical or esoteric, but we really need to update that idea. The modern scientific view sees archetypes as these emergent patterns that are formed from the most fundamental human experiences. Think about the universal story of the hero's journey. It pops up in myths all over the world, not because it's magically inherited, but because the experience of facing a huge challenge and overcoming it is just a core part of being human. And you can really see that shift right here. We're moving away from that classical, almost metaphysical idea, and we're moving towards a view that's grounded in contemporary scholarship and cognitive science. As scholars like Jean Knox and David Hoganson have argued, archetypes are these reliable patterns that just arise from our shared biology and the way we all develop. They're like the scaffolding that we build all of our meaning on. And what's so fascinating is that Jung himself actually made this connection. He saw archetypes as being tied directly to our biology, even describing them as inherited patterns of behavior. Now, this is an absolutely crucial link because it sets the stage perfectly for our second clue, which comes from the very heart of biology itself. All right, let's move on to our next clue, which comes from a field called code biology. Now, this might seem like a total left turn, but stick with me because this is where things get really, really interesting. So code biology, which was pioneered by a guy named Marcello Barbieri, it puts forward this radical idea that life isn't just a product of chemistry and physics. Nope, it's organized by codes. And these are systems of rules that create meaning and function. Of course, the genetic code is the most famous one, but Barbieri argues that life is just packed with them, from the molecular level all the way up to human culture. And get this, all of these different codes, they all share a common three-part structure. First, there is a code, which is just a set of arbitrary rules. Then there's a mediator, which is a mechanism that reads and carries out those rules. And finally, this whole process produces an artifact, a real, tangible, functional product. Let's look at the classic example just to make this super concrete. The DNA sequence, that's the code. The ribosome, that's the mediator that reads the code. And the protein it builds, that's the artifact. Code, mediator, artifact. According to Barbieri, this fundamental logic is what separates life from non-life. Remember that structure, it is the key to everything. Okay, so let's bring our two clues together. Archetypes as emergent biological patterns and life as a system of codes. This is the moment where we connect it all directly to artificial intelligence. So here it is, the core hypothesis of the paper. It proposes that large language models, by compressing centuries of human expression, are creating a functional analog, a working model of our collective psychic structure. They're not inheriting it biologically, they are discovering it statistically. And here is the big aha moment. Just look at how that three-part model from code biology maps perfectly onto a large language model. The learned model weights, that vast network of parameters, they act as the code. The transformer architecture is the mediator that processes inputs according to that code. And the story, or the poem, or the answer it spits out, that is the artifact. It is the exact same underlying logic. This parallel goes even deeper. Think about Jung's classic word association experiments, right? You give a person a stimulus word, and their response reveals these hidden patterns in their psyche. Now, what's the most fundamental thing an LLM does? Next token prediction. You give it a string of words, and its response, the very next word, reveals the hidden statistical patterns in its training data. They're both associative processes that uncover a deeper organization. Now, this next point is absolutely critical. LLMs are not creating their own new codes from scratch. What they are doing is processing the artifacts that we humans have already created. They are trained on our myths, our religions, our literature, all the collected products of our own biological, neural, and cultural codes. In a way, they're a mirror to our codified world. So, if this theory holds water, what does it actually mean for us? Let's explore some of the truly mind-bending implications for the future. Okay, to keep our thinking straight, the paper gives us this really rigorous 3-level framework. Level 1, can LLMs produce outputs that look archetypal? Yes, absolutely. We see this all the time. Level 2, do they possess their own unconscious mind with their own feelings or intentions? No, definitely not. They are not sentient. But level 3, that's the big one. Can they facilitate a human's access to their own unconscious material? And that, right now, is an open empirical question. I mean, if the answer to that third question is even a little bit yes, the possibilities are just astounding. Could an LLM act as a kind of therapeutic artifact? A tool that helps us see our own patterns more clearly? Could it help us get some reflective distance, allowing us to observe our thoughts and feelings instead of just being swept away by them? We could be looking at a completely new kind of mirror for the human mind. And this quote from J.C. Major, whose work really informs this whole theory, it just captures the scale of this idea perfectly. The archetype is no longer just a psychological concept. It becomes an organizational principle that spans biology, neuroscience, human culture, and now, computation itself. It's a bridge between the code of life and the code of machines. What we're really talking about here is a profound philosophical shift. The lines that we've always drawn between what's natural and what's artificial, between life and computation, they're starting to get really blurry. We are watching a new kind of code emerge into the world, one that's built on the foundation of all the codes that came before it. So I'll leave you with this one last thought. For billions of years, life has been this system of organic codes that generates complexity and meaning. And now, for the first time in history, we have created our own systems that do something remarkably similar. The question we have to start asking ourselves is, what happens next?